Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to tell you about 4 amazing plants to help you control cholesterol. These are plants that are easy to find. In fact, you probably already have some of them at home that contain natural ingredients which are scientifically proven to help control cholesterol. I'll even give you ideas on how to add them to your daily routine, so stick around until the end because you won't want to miss this. Before we start, I want to ask you if you worry about your cholesterol. Have you ever had high cholesterol? Was it your total cholesterol, LDL, or HDL? Have you, for example, had a blood test for triglycerides or other types of blood fats? Tell me down below in the comments how things are going for you. And why are you concerned? I would love to see your comment. Many people worry about high cholesterol, and of course it's important for us to know our total cholesterol value and keep it under control. But LDL is the bad cholesterol, and it's the most important one for us to monitor in our tests. This is a very important tip that I always give you. And there's also the issue of the natural LDL and the oxidized LDL. The natural LDL, the native one, fulfills its function in our body, returns to the liver, and everything works as it should. We need these different fractions of LDL, VLDL, and HDL, otherwise we wouldn't exist. So each of them has its own metabolic role. Now, oxidized LDL is something we need to be careful with because when LDL circulates in an environment with a lot of free radicals, and this can be related to diet, smoking, exposure to toxins, stress, low-grade chronic inflammation in our body, and also when glycation is present in our system due to chronically elevated glucose levels, these molecules can undergo structural changes and end up behaving almost like foreign substances within the body. The endothelium is the wall of the blood vessel. We know that our blood vessel is like a little wall and it just looks like a tube, like a little hose, so to speak. But this endothelium, this vessel wall, is actually an endocrine organ. Very interesting and dynamic. Many people are unaware of the role it plays. So when we have endothelial dysfunction, when we have a problem in the vessel walls, chronic inflammation, and so on, the endothelium ends up losing its function of producing nitric oxide and becomes permeable. And this is interesting because it's in this gap in the permeability of the vessel, the capillary, in short, the blood vessel, that oxidized LDL is able to penetrate the artery wall into this subendothelial space. And then several harmful processes occur in our blood vessels. Native LDL, which hasn't been oxidized, doesn't do this, okay? So it's only when LDL is oxidized that it can cause these harmful effects in our body. And this triggers an inflammatory immune response, where our defense cells enter the vessel wall to consume this oxidized LDL. Then there is phagocytosis by macrophages. This can lead to foam cells, excess oxidized fat, and these macrophages die and turn into these foam cells, which are the foundation of that atheroma plaque that can lead to atherosclerosis, strokes, plaques that can break off and cause even bigger problems. So it's very important that we prevent the oxidation of cholesterol. Of course, the cholesterol level is extremely important to monitor, but it's also very important to have a less inflammatory environment with less oxidation and fewer free radicals to prevent this oxidation of LDL cholesterol, which is so harmful to our bodies, as you have just learned. This is where our plants come in because they act like a protective shield, a botanical shield of polyphenols that can have very interesting effects, especially when it comes to oxidized LDL. For example, the first plant I'm bringing to you here is rosemary, this wonderful herb that we can use in various dishes. I'll give you some more ideas later. But rosemary isn't just a wonderful seasoning, aroma, and flavor, it's a powerhouse because it contains rosmarinic acid and carnosic acid. So, it helps protect against the oxidation of LDL. Carnosic acid is a lipophilic antioxidant that incorporates itself into LDL particles. And studies show that it really acts as a shield, donating electrons to free radicals before they attack the polyunsaturated fatty acids in LDL particles. So this prevents the formation of oxidized LDL, which is the real trigger for those foam cell problems I already explained to you about in the endothelial wall. Still talking about endothelial preservation, it stimulates a regulatory protein pathway that activates the production of endogenous antioxidant enzymes, such as superoxide dismutase, which is very important for our body. And this reduces oxidative stress in endothelial cells, maintaining the bioavailability of nitric oxide, which helps the blood vessel to relax and improves the functioning of the vessel walls themselves. So we can use rosemary in several different ways. Rosemary is very palatable, it's very tasty, and it seasons food very well. You can also make rosemary tea the simple way. Usually 1 tablespoon of fresh leaves is all you need, or just 1 teaspoon if you're using dried leaves. It's a good idea to crush the rosemary first if you're steeping it directly in your cup, since the leaves can be a bit tough. So you can crush it, mash it a little in a mortar and so on, pour boiling water over it, wait 10 to 15 minutes, and then drink the tea. Another great option is to use it as a seasoning. It goes really well with meat, vegetables, and also with fish. It pairs very well with white meats, poultry, and a wide variety of vegetables. You can even add it to olive oil, right? We can make a little infusion with it in olive oil and then drizzle it over salads and so on. The most important thing when we think about these natural foods is frequent use. So adding these plants to your daily routine consistently brings about these beneficial effects. The second plant is oregano, which contains carvacrol and thymol, bioactive compounds that are very important for inhibiting lipid peroxidation. In fact, oregano has one of the highest oxygen radical absorbance capacities among herbs. So, in physiological terms, it inhibits this lipid peroxidation, which is the chain reaction that damages cell membranes and circulating fats. Oregano also helps to modulate cytokines. Scientific evidence shows that carvacrol decreases the expression of adhesion molecules in the endothelium, meaning it makes the walls of the arteries less sticky, preventing cholesterol and inflammatory cells from attaching and increasing atherosclerotic plaque. So, by reducing the stickiness, this adhesive effect that it could have, it helps prevent that process from happening. So, oregano is very practical for us to add it to our daily routine. You can use it as a finishing touch if you want in salads, dishes. It goes well with cheese, works well with tomatoes, works well with fish, with poultry too, and with pasta in general. So it's really practical. Remember that if you want, you can also make tea with it the same way you would with rosemary. But in the case of oregano, since it is a plant that's easier, lighter, you don't need to crush it. You can just make an infusion with it, no problem. There's another plant, which is thyme, and it's very rich in flavonoids like luteolin and apigenin, as well as terpenic compounds. It improves the modulation of certain receptors, which are fat sensors in our cells, and enhances the metabolic environment. When it activates these receptors, it helps lipid metabolism and promotes the oxidation of fatty acids, the burning of fat in our body. It also stimulates bile secretion and the activity of pancreatic enzymes, the lipases. And we know that more efficient fat digestion reduces the formation of certain types of atherogenic plaques and pre-plaques of compounds that can potentially form atherogenic plaques. So it's really interesting for us to be able to add thyme to our diet as well. Many people aren't in the habit of consuming thyme and don't even know what it tastes like, but it's really delicious and goes very well with many dishes. In soups, vegetables, roasts, meats, and as a seasoning in general. And once again, if you want, you can also use it as a tea. Another wonderful plant is cilantro, which contains linalool and powerful polyphenols. Cilantro is very aromatic, very palatable, and has an interesting hypolipidemic and hepatic effect. Experimental studies indicate that cilantro increases the activity of the LPL enzyme, which helps clear fats from the blood so they can be used as energy. And in the liver, it increases the conversion of cholesterol into bile acids, meaning it promotes excretion and reduces the body's own synthesis of cholesterol. It acts in a very subtle way, but through pathways similar to those targeted by statins. So I'm not comparing it to medication, but saying that it can act on the same pathways, though, of course, in a more limited way. Cilantro also has a very interesting potential to reduce vascular inflammation in blood vessels in the vessel walls. And cilantro extract has shown the ability to reduce CRP levels, C-reactive protein, which is a classic marker of inflammation in our body, in a broader systemic way. So, less inflammation means that the circulating cholesterol is less likely to become that oxidized form, which is dangerous inside our arteries. So, how do you use cilantro? Actually, how could you not use it? Because cilantro goes well with almost everything, from tea, which you can make, to sauces, salads, fish, seafood. It pairs really well as a finishing touch for dishes. I think out of all of them, it's the most versatile one you can add to your daily routine. Even in beans, it tastes good. A lot of people want to know about the difference between dried herbs and fresh herbs. Dried herbs have a higher concentration of active compounds per gram because they're dried, dehydrated, they've lost water. But fresh herbs retain some compounds that are more sensitive, more readily available, and often have better culinary acceptance. Ideally, you should try to alternate. If you can find fresh thyme, fresh oregano, cilantro, of course it's easier, right? Now, if you can't find them, you can use dried dehydrated herbs, as long as they're 100% natural seasonings. Just be careful not to use those bouillon cubes or powders that don't actually contain any real seasoning and may have a lot of glutamate or other added ingredients. Ideally, we should stick to natural foods. It's also worth mentioning that these herbs, these plants, will help you, but they won't work miracles if you don't help yourself as well. So it's very important to reduce sugar, flour, refined foods, ultra-processed foods, because they increase low-grade chronic inflammation, can raise cholesterol, and can also increase cholesterol oxidation, which is harmful, as you already understand. So ideally, we should maintain regular physical activity, get good sleep, avoid alcoholic beverages, smoking, which is terrible for our health. And remember that they are very important for us to add in a complementary way. I even have a playlist here on the channel talking more about heart and artery health, another one talking only about cholesterol, triglycerides, and everything else, and I'll leave both of these down below in the description. Now tell me, which of these herbs is the easiest for you to add to your routine? Or maybe you're already using one of them and had no idea how good it actually is. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Remember to go ahead and leave your like on the video. That helps me a lot. And share it with those who will enjoy it and with those who need it. A lot of people need it. Let's expand our chain of kindness. That's what I want here with the channel. See you next time. Bye.